Welcome back to Marvel Good Yay, the spinoff of the Geek Easy podcast, where we're going back to watch all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films leading up to the release of Avengers Endgame. I am Pixel Dan.
Jonathan Leonard.
I'm going to take a nap this episode.
Oh no! Don't sleep through this one. This is a very important episode.
Probably the most important episode in the history of episodes.
It's the return of Spider-Man to the MCU. Like, for real.
Well, I thought
was in that one
that
movie.
was. I was going to say I thought that was Civil War.
No, this is him coming home.
Yeah.
Oh.
Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh, is that why
Yeah.
I just got that.
I know.
Think about it. It's
Yep.
a double entendre.
Spider-Man Homecoming. Topic of today's discussion. Should be a really fun episode because...
The first Sony movie in the MCU.
Yeah, that's weird.
Like this, I still don't understand how all of this works or why it's worked so well. Or,
Yeah.
You know, normally I feel like I'm pretty well up on how movies get made. Mm-hmm. You know, I read a lot of stuff about that. I follow a lot of stuff about that. I'm obviously no expert. I've never been there. But I feel like I got a fairly firm grasp on how a lot of these deals work. I still have no idea why this one works as well. You know, like, because...
It's because Disney is like the Steven Spielberg of companies. You know, like for Who Framed Roger Rabbit, they got to have Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny and like all the cartoons mixed because Steven Spielberg went around to everybody and was like, "Hey, I'm making this movie. I need to use them." And who you don't say no to Steven Spielberg. You know, you go, "Yes, that's great as long as we get this." And he goes, "That's fine."
Yeah.
Disney was like, "Look, we need Spider-Man," and Sony was like, "What? All right, cool."
I feel like it's right along those lines somewhere because at some point Sony got tired of going, we know we can make all the money, we don't know how to make all the money.
Why are we making all the money?
I think Disney stepped in and was like, we have a decent track record of making all the money.
Right.
We can help you make all of the money if we can just have some of it. Mm-hmm. And there it is.
Well, speaking of the money,
Yeah.
how much money did this movie make?
That's a great question. We got a production budget of $175 million, which is fairly on par, a little lower than some of the budgets we've been looking at here. And we've got a domestic total.
So you're saying Sony's cheapskates?
Whoa.
No, well, I don't know who paid for it, man. I don't know how any of this works.
Oh, fair enough.
I got no follow-up there
Good.
because my nose is going to start bleeding.
So it made
$334 million domestically, made $545 million, almost $546 overseas, for a grand total of, where in the world did the total go? Oh, there you go, $880 million. So,
Nice.
not the $1 billion club quite, but pretty high total.
Right.
Spider-Man being one of the most money-making franchises in superhero lore, based solely on how big they were in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
That was the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans were the ones that were originally breaking all those records. They were
Right.
the first weekend, $100 million total.
yeah. And the first one that looked like a comic book,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're kind of. I mean, you could go back to the Supermans,
Yeah.
but I mean, there was such a wide gulf in between that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking
of
late 70s there.
yeah,
you know,
you know,
when the good ones of those came out.
black leather and what do you prefer? Yellow spandexes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think we brought that up before of
Right.
how like the X-Men movies were definitely kind of like the start of this, but like those Raimi Spider-Man movies were like the absolute turning point
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
like superhero
And-
big budget movies.
And they weren't quite. I mean, they still did the thing where they tried to, you know, ground it or make it a little more movie friendly. I mean, they did the organic web shooters,
Right.
The Green Goblin. They
Or-
didn't even try to do
Man.
like the actual mask or anything.
Well, they
just,
did try because there's all that test
Well,
footage.
yeah, okay, fair enough.
They actually were going to do the makeup and stuff because there's all that test footage of
Willem Dafoe.
like looking like a comic book Green Goblin, and they had like animatronics kind of built into the makeup so that his face would kind of contort and move like that. And then they just went, well, this looks awesome, and just like the comic, let's have him wearing a flight suit and a helmet instead because that's more reality based.
But I got a feeling they also looked at that and went, well, we can do it. It's going to take forever and $1 billion.
Yeah,
but we
yeah.
technically can do it.
Yeah.
Or we can just pretend it's a real world scenario and it's just a battle suit, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Willem Dafoe just had the face for Green
He
Goblin.
did.
Why didn't
Yeah.
they just
Yes.
spray?
Like
they really
why didn't they
could've
just spray paint him green and
Yeah.
Maybe
could
put
have- they
that,
could have
like,
just given
like
it-
that Roxanne nose on it, or what's that? Yeah, Roxanne.
Oh,
yeah, from,
Steve Martin.
Steve Martin.
yeah.
movie. Yeah, just put that nose on him. He's good, man. Get a purple
Bug out his
Santa
eyes
Claus
a
hat.
little, maybe.
Purple Santa Claus.
Yeah, purple Santa Claus hat.
He's good.
Ho
man.
ho ho, Spider-Man.
That was a good Willem Dafoe right there.
Thanks.
That's a really
Sounds
good.
just like it. But again, like I said, and I think there's a lot to be said for the idea that one of the reason those movies were as successful as they were is they were bringing Spider-Man to the big screen. He's always been the Marvel poster child.
Yeah.
He's the Marvel Batman.
Yeah.
Or Superman, I guess.
Yeah.
You're probably more accurate with Batman though, because Batman is definitely the more money grabbing type superhero, right, for DC, as far as movies go, at least.
As far as movies go, and as far as just how many times he's been adapted over, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Spider-Man. I mean, like Spider-Man and Batman. Those are the two that have been adapted. They've both had multiple cartoons. They've both had live action TV shows. They've both had several different incarnations of movies.
Yeah, you're right.
Superman's had all that too.
I mean, that's not on the same level.
Sure.
Man, you can't compare. You can't compare. There's been 3 different Batmans, and 4 different Spider-Mans, and 2 different Supermans.
There's been 3 different Supermans.
When?
Just on the movies?
On the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reeves, Routh, and
Man,
Brandon
returns
Routh.
don't. Returns
Returns
don't.
Returns counts.
Returns doesn't
super
count.
counts.
You can like Returns as a movie.
No.
That's not like it didn't spurn its own franchise.
No.
What's there's my point right there.
Like, I don't know that Man of Steel spurned its own franchise. It was just forced into one.
I mean, you could say the same thing about the Amazing Spider-Mans, but there was still more than one of those.
That's
You know, like that's
yeah, that's totally fair. Superman's got a lot historically, also, though. I mean, Superman's what put the company on the map originally. Batman has gotten bigger over time.
all right, cool. so Homecoming.
Danny started us off. Jared and I are going to look the other way for a while.
That was neat. All right. So, yeah, this is interesting too, and we've just bringing that up with all those other movies because Spider-Man's had so many movies, like in recent memory, and I think that was part of the downfall of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, is because they felt like they came so quickly after the Raimi movies, and they started all the way over, and they gave us almost the same story elements all over again, and people just didn't want to go through that again. I don't think that's the way I felt about it.
They
at
didn't
least.
try to do anything new with
No,
those,
not
really.
at all.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they threw in new villains and they replaced Mary Jane with Gwen Stacy, but otherwise they were the same movies.
Yeah.
They told the same kind of stories. He didn't really develop outside of the same stuff we saw Peter doing in the other movies. It was just it was more of the same, too close. So
They were a little darker,
a little.
not like egregiously dark necessarily, but that's also not the right direction to take Spider-Man.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Also, I didn't like that Spider-Man. What was his name?
Andrew Garfield.
Andrew
Garfield,
Garfield.
yeah.
I did not like Andrew Garfield.
No.
I liked
I
liked that he was a little quippier. I mean, that's not necessarily him though. That's the writing and the Spider-Man part. Like I love the Tobey Spider-Mans, but he always seemed he never had the wit that I expect out of a Spider-Man. You know, especially in mid-fight.
So
Yeah.
I felt like he was too cool. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
he wasn't,
for sure.
He wasn't believable as a geek.
Yeah.
You know, so when he was getting picked on, I was like, they wouldn't be picking on him.
Yeah.
He's cool. Like nobody would pick on that kid.
Right.
He's cooler than the guys picking on him.
That was my main complaint about.
Yeah, I'm
Garfield.
totally on board with that.
So they're rebooting again, but this time it's got a lot of going for it because of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that's getting people a little excited because we want to see what Marvel can do with this character now that we've seen Sony just do the same thing with him over and over again for all these years. Plus, it's neat getting to see him brought into the fold of what's currently going on. So that's really helpful too. But I love that this movie didn't give us the origin story again. We all know who Spider-Man is at this point, and they don't have to show us the entire thing all over again. So that gets major points right off the bat. But I love the way this movie starts with all of the events of Civil War happening from Peter's perspective. I thought that was so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. He's like recording like a little video diary of the whole thing, which is great because he's not supposed to be like recording or telling anybody about this. But of course he is. He's like filming this whole thing.
But I love that they let him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because even in the car, Tony's like...
because Happy's like, you can't show this to anybody. Why are you doing the voice?
But we see like why he gets or how he gets the Stark costume, like the more better looking Spider-Man outfit from his homemade suit. And I love that part in the hotel because he's like in front of the mirror and he's got his homemade suit on and he's all like gearing up and everything and like getting himself all psyched for this fight. And then Happy walks in and he's like, "What are you wearing? What are you doing? Did you find the bag?" And then he opens that door and he goes, "There's more to this room? I thought this was the whole room."
Right.
That was fantastic.
Now the Civil War stuff came after like the prologue or whatever. Like the actual beginning of the movie starts you off right after the events of the New York battle.
Yes, that's right.
Which I loved from a MCU perspective. I loved that they were giving you up close looks at the real world consequences of some of this stuff going on. Because they kind of carried that as a theme through parts of Civil War, especially. We're not just battling villains, we're also destroying cities.
Right.
And this expanded on that because we get introduced to Michael Keaton's character, who is basically running a cleanup crew through New York, picking up the mess that the Avengers made. And they've got all these Chitauri weapons. They've got one of those giant lizard spaceship things.
Yeah.
Like they got all this around. And he's just going through, and it's funny to me because you would think from our real world perspective, if you would see something like that, you'd be losing your mind. But he's just running through like he's a normal foreman at a normal job.
Yeah.
Like, you can't saw these things apart. You got to use their own things on them because they're too tough,
Yeah.
And just playing it like it's nothing. And then the bureaucracy comes in. Basically, they come in, tell him he's no longer employed there. They don't need his help. The specialists are going to take care of it. He tries to reason with him and tell him he's just bought all this stuff. He got this contract, blah, 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 whatever. And they basically just kick him to the side, which really got me into that phase. Like already, like at the very beginning of this movie, it reminded me like, oh yeah, I'm kind of rooting for the bad guy.
100%.
Yeah, in this movie. Like not necessarily over Spider-Man, because Spider-Man also isn't causing any of this stuff.
Right.
But immediately they blame all this on another Stark mess.
Yep.
And the whole time I'm like, I would definitely root for Vulture over Iron Man here.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
It's cool to, especially since we've been going back and rewatching this, but Marvel has handled their villains very well, especially in these more recent movies, because I feel like they all have real motives for doing what they ultimately end up doing, but also like totally believable motives that you can kind of even like understand at the very least, right? Like you can get why they feel the way they do. And Vulture, totally, it makes total sense. Like he was talking about how like he's already got all the licenses or whatever for all these gigs.
Yeah,
in the
he
city.
bought a bunch of trucks and all this stuff.
And they're just like, nope, sorry, that's over now. So he lost all these jobs. He's losing out on all this money, and he's
already spent a ton.
He spent a ton of money for the cleanups. Yeah, so like
which for the record, he'd probably still get paid on those contracts, right?
You would think.
I mean, maybe there's a reduced rate in there or something, but especially a contract with the city, like you don't just, they don't.
Well, it
like
depends,
the feds
though.
don't
just. If the contract was for, this is a really weird topic for our podcast here. Like we're getting into contract negotiations now.
Yeah.
Anyways, if the contract was for a certain amount of time. But he's going, well, there's a ton of cleanup, and so I'm going to go buy all this equipment because we're going to need it or whatever. And then maybe he just gets paid on that first phase thinking there's going to be a lot more follow-up. Or if there's some sort of opt-out clause that, again, if he's literally like the word they use is overextending.
Right.
If he's looking at it going, okay, well, this is what we're actually doing here, but if I buy all this stuff because we're going to need it, and then all of a sudden he gets undercut and just gets that one quick payout and then there's nothing following, not great business tactics on his side, but still keeps the point there. I also liked how he totally leveled that guy for talking crap to him.
Yeah.
And I do like how I think it was Tyne Daly played the woman who was in charge of that. Who was another one is like she used to be big on TV. Like I remember seeing her. I don't know what she's big from, but I even remember when she first showed up on screen, going, "Oh yeah, her."
her.
You know?
Oh, her, yeah.
Seen her before.
But I liked how she was sort of sympathetic to it, you know, like because everybody started drawing on him, and she's like, "Calm down, just you know."
Yeah. You don't draw your guns when you punch somebody. But, yeah, no, I'm with you.
You're doing a world where aliens fall out of the sky sometimes.
Maybe. And I'm not trying to like call the movie out on that. Like, this is totally unrealistic. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, he's definitely still getting at least something from those contracts. Yeah. You know, but yes, still would suck.
Yeah, so ultimately we find out that they've just decided, like, they swiped a bunch of the tech, right? Like a bunch of the alien tech.
Well, they do the 8 years forward thing, which is one of the few times we really get a date stamp at all in the MCU, because now we know this is 8 years after the events of the first Avengers.
Yeah.
And they I think they transition right into him showing up. I don't remember when that scene is. Somewhere around the Civil War. I don't think was it after the Civil War scene.
I was gonna say I think we get the Civil War scene first, and then it comes back,
and then it comes back to Vulture showing up in his wingsuit now that he's developed out of this thing, and he's basically just dropping off crates of Chitauri technology, and you see the Tinkerer in there building weapons out of it, and you kind of get the layout that's what they've done is since they couldn't do the cleanup stuff, they've just gone to stealing a bunch of that equipment, making stuff out of it and selling it on the black market.
Yeah.
Which kind of made me laugh. It just seemed a little anticlimactic in that moment because like he comes flying in with the big suits and he like lowers down and he drops like 2 milk crates worth of stuff and I'm just like, oh, all that for that. Good job, man. No wonder you're a millionaire.
You get to fly in that big thing? I'd fly in that thing if I had that thing. Like, what, I gotta go pick up milk from the grocery store?
Right.
Let me get my wings on. I'll be right back.
Well, like later they show that he's got like some hydraulic claws and stuff to help. But at the time, it just looks like, well, we got this suit so he can steal whatever he can carry. I'm like, good. That's a supervillain, guys.
Yeah. What do you think of the look of Vulture, the design of the character for this movie?
I liked it. It's not. We just talked about the change in like the original Green Goblin.
Yeah.
And how they could have gone comic look and they went real world anyway. And then we keep praising them for doing all sorts of straight out of the comic things now.
Yeah.
And here's an example of them going, this is a little bit less comic, a little more real world. It's not a geriatric guy in green tights, green feathery tights. It's it's a guy in an actual suit that makes a little bit more sense. But it is one of those that had to grow on me. Yeah. Because when they first, without any frame of reference for the movie or anything, when they first, like, the toys came out and the previews came out, and I saw it, and they're like, here's the Vulture, and I went, that's a lot.
This looks like Sony's doing.
Yeah. Exactly. But when I saw it in the actual movie, and part of it is that how much I like the movie, and part of it is how much I liked Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
The look didn't bother me anymore.
Well, and he kind of does look more like, because there's... Vulture kind of has two distinct looks, right? Because there's younger Vulture and older Vulture. Because he did that, it was like a de-aging thing or something, right?
He got some of the Captain America serum, right?
Is that what it was?
I thought.
So, like, the younger Vulture did have more of kind of like that armory look to him. He wasn't just wearing like the green tights with the feathers.
That's
Awesome.
It was during the 90s, man. Everyone had to have power armor.
That's true. Everybody had the power armor and
everybody had to be young and cool and have power armor.
Yeah, so I feel like he almost has more of that kind of look. I do like how they threw in little things like the top of the jacket he was wearing has kind of like the fluffy, because that was on the top of Vulture's suit in the comics and stuff like that. So yeah, I was kind of the same way. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. Yeah, there's like. I'm looking at pictures right now. There's like the younger one. Yeah. They kind of eliminated all the green from the costume. Yeah. He didn't really have the green look, but I don't know. Like I agree though. Like Michael Keaton was awesome, and like the character itself, I really liked.
And I really like. And I don't. The Vulture's one of the Spider-Man villains I probably know least about because I just never cared that much for his backstory. I know I think he was a burglar. I don't even remember. It shows you how much, even the stuff I thought I knew, now that I'm starting to say it, I don't even know for sure that I know that.
Yeah.
But I know he wasn't like Peter's friend's dad as it turns out here,
Yeah.
stuff like that. He was much older than Michael Keaton plays. He wasn't a foreman who got screwed out of a contract by the city or anything like that.
Right.
But I really love what they did with that character here. It's one of those where I'm like, I'm not going to care about the Vulture, but hopefully it'll look neat. And it probably looked a little less neat than I thought it would, even with some of the battles.
Yeah.
But I loved what they did with the character.
Yeah.
Which surprised me.
Well, before we get too far off the track, with the look, I just want to talk about, for me, I really liked the look.
Yeah.
And I would compare, when I think about comparing it to the Green Goblin, I think it's different. So when you take the Vulture, and he's like a blue collar foreman who's rebelling, becoming this criminal because whatever, right? Because of the contracts and everything. He's like wearing jeans and like a bomber jacket, and he's got the big rig, and the mask looks like something it looks like a jet pilot mask, that you would build to fly with that kind of stuff.
Right.
It kind of melds with the character, as opposed to like the Green Goblin in the Raimis, where he's got like this green all over suit of armor with like a clear yellow face mask. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like it makes sense. So I have to imagine this scientist corporation. Well, I don't even remember what. No, he was rich in that, right? He was Oscorp still, right? So we have to imagine
he was developing weapons,
right? So we have to imagine like the head of Oscorp in there, like developing this suit of armor, and then like spray painted. This'll look great if it's green. They'll call me the Green Bomber. Like whatever. You know what I mean? That faceplate's not yellow, and I don't want it clear. I need it yellow so it obscures my. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like it makes sense.
Like that's what's so funny to me about that, because I totally buy the explanation of they're building these like war suits, and so this is supposed to be like a prototype.
Right.
Basically, be like an evil Iron Man armor almost.
Right.
I get that, and that's how it becomes a Green Goblin. But exactly what you said. That's where the suspension of disbelief has to come in.
Yeah.
Because at no point are they going, well, we're going to make it green. Oh, okay, because the army's going to buy it. No. Bright green.
Right.
And it's got a face, an evil demon face. Why is that? Because it's awesome.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So there's a little bit. It's a little more forgivable on my end.
Yeah.
When it makes sense. Yeah. Like let's ground it in reality. Okay, well I could see that. If I was a foreman and I was gonna suddenly be a wing pilot.
Right.
I'd wear a bomber jacket.
Yeah.
Well, while we're on the subject, this movie does kind of do that with several different characters in the movie, because we get introduced to a lot of the characters that come straight out of the Spider-Man mythos, but they do handle them a little bit differently in these movies. So, like if we're talking about Peter's classmates, Flash Thompson, which was always the big bully for Peter Parker, is in the movie, but instead of being like a jock, he's just another smart kid who's just kind of a jerk.
Well, and that's because they've got Peter going to basically this advanced high school.
Yeah.
And so they are all tech kids and nerds. Like the big competition that they're a part of is like is it Scholastic Bowl or whatever it is?
Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, they're
decathlon. It's a something decathlon, but it's like,
but it's answering questions,
Right.
Like it's just all of these kids, and so they can't do the thing where they're like, nerdy Parker, because it's an entire high school full of nerdy Parkers. So so they have to have Flash basically be another giant nerd who's not quite as smart as everybody and is pretty mad about it.
Yeah. So he just kind of picks on Peter for being the smartest, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of made me laugh because they kind of imply that he's comes from a rich family. Flash does.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking with everything that's in the news right now with the
my gosh,
that would have been. They'd have sunk their teeth into that in an instant and made his parents someone famous, you know what I mean? Like a few years later, man, poor Flash.
Yeah, really.
Poor Flash.
We get introduced to, it's Ned, right? Which is Peter's friend. And I believe that's a character that came from I think they've used a character similar to that in the comics at some point. But I almost want to say that they did that more with Miles in the Ultimate books than they did with Peter. Are you familiar at all with a sidekick character like that?
I feel like I'm not, but except for trying to figure out who he was. And I I feel like you're right about that. Maybe being a character that they pulled more from the the Miles Morales version of it. The only Ned I know from regular Peter Parker Spider-Man was one of the Hobgoblins, but that's a totally different character.
Okay, right, yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at pictures online. I'm almost positive they pulled Ned out of the Miles version of the book. Yeah, so they just kind of incorporated him in as Peter's friend in this.
Yeah.
But speaking, look, Hobgoblin pictures are on here. But speaking of Miles, there is that really cool reference. That's funny. It's Jaron just pointed out. There's people like, do you think is this gonna be Hobgoblin? Like, there's pictures on Google of like the showing Ned character with Hobgoblin. That's great. That'd be weird. You never know, though. I guess.
You never know. He asked if he could have the spider bite him.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. He did. Speaking of Miles, though, we did get Prowler.
Yeah.
In the movie.
Yeah.
Played by
we get 4 or 5 villains.
Yeah. So Donald Glover actually plays the character of Prowler, which is Miles' uncle.
Really?
I
didn't realize that was Prowler. I guess.
Yep. He's Prowler.
I know nothing about Miles Morales.
So they said,
I know the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Well,
I know nothing else about Miles Morales.
They did say the character's actual name, who I can't remember at this moment. But there is that part
I think
too.
it's Aaron something.
There's that part too where Peter goes back to talk to him or whatever, and he ends up helping Peter, and he says that line, "Look, I don't want that stuff around here. I've got a nephew that lives in this area."
Yeah.
So like now we know Miles Morales exists in the MCU, and that's pretty awesome.
That's cool.
And also we got Donald Glover in a Spider-Man movie. Which, he didn't play Spider-Man as the internet was clamoring 4 years ago, but I like that they at least were like, we got to get him or something. And he's in 2 scenes, and that guy just steals anything he's in.
He's awesome.
And he's not even trying to. He's playing he seems half drugged out. Barely.
Yeah.
But he's got one. I loved his line when Parker's spying on him, and he's trying to buy that stuff, and they're shooting the big guns around.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I just want a gun. I need someone to stick people up with, not shoot them back in time.
Like, why are you trying to upsell me? I love the exchange they have at the trunk there when Peter gets that big menacing voice.
Yeah.
And comes running up at him, and he's like,
I know what a girl sounds like.
I know what a girl sounds like.
But my favorite part about that is when they start arguing over sandwiches.
Yeah.
I like bread.
It's a lot of bread. I like bread.
And then he leaves them stuck to the trunk.
Yep.
That'll come off in 2 hours.
Yep.
What? No.
I got ice cream in here.
I got ice cream in here.
I love that while we're on the subject.
I really hope that's what leads him to becoming the Prowler.
Yes.
I was just going to I was going to get off the streets, but then my ice cream melted. Must kill Spider-Man.
I was going to say, I hope we get more Donald Glover.
Me too.
That'd be great.
Me too. While we're on the subject of sandwiches, I love that opening scene when Peter's in that deli towards the beginning, talking to that guy who's selling him the sandwiches.
Yeah.
I just love it when they start arguing over Peter's attractive aunt and stuff, and the guy's like, that'll be $10, and Peter's like, it's $5, pointing at the sign. Man, there's not a sandwich in New York that costs $5 anywhere. Most sandwich shops in New York charge a $5 cover.
You can get lots of pizza for only $1, though.
Really?
Yeah, there's dollar slice pizza places all over New York. And they're good.
I didn't think New York recognized singles as currency anymore.
Nah, man, you can get some good stuff there. Get some gyros off the street carts. That's only like $4. They're amazing.
Moving to New York.
Moving to New York so I can subsist off $1 pizza and $4 street gyros.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Gosh, we're kind of jumping all over the place, but there's just so many neat little things in this movie. So I guess
we get 2 shockers.
We're kind of we got and it's both shockers, right? Like, I'm pretty sure those different characters have both been the shocker in the comics.
I mean, there's been multiple ones.
That's one thing too that I kind of forgot about while watching this, because there was definitely photos from the set before the movie came out of Shocker in the full Shocker costume.
Was there?
And we never saw that in the actual film.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
I'm going to look it up because I'm almost positive that was a thing that came out. Oh, yep, there he is right there. He had like the mask and everything.
Oh, it's terrible looking.
That's probably why.
Yep, see, there you go. There's the set pictures
Like,
right there.
get the Shocker in costume.
Yeah, so
cool.
I mean, they apparently dropped that completely because
Yeah.
he just had the gloves. He did kind of have the yellow.
Yeah, again, they did sort of the same thing
Yeah.
with Vulture. Like they did things that were reminiscent of the comic book look without actually
Right.
being the comic book look.
Right, exactly. But yeah, that was totally fine. Shockers.
when Michael
That feels like all these things like Sony came to the table
Totally,
with,
right?
Like,
Yeah.
we got this Shocker costume made, guys. Yeah, man, that's dope. We'll totally use that. Then they're watching it. Where's the Shocker costume? Oh yeah,
He forgot it.
Yeah, he forgot it. Oh no, he spilled coffee on it, and we couldn't reschedule the shoot.
I loved when Michael Keaton was making fun of him. Like, oh, I'm the Shocker. I'm gonna shock you. What are you, a professional wrestler?
Yeah, that was great. Well, you know, Shocker's always kind of been one of those characters that's like been a joke villain anyway.
Yep.
And we've always talked about how we would love to see Shocker just show up in one of these movies just to get beat up by Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So I thought it was pretty neat that he beat
Yeah.
up 2 Shockers in this movie.
Well, and you remember there was one of those open world Spider-Man video games several years back where
it was from the movies, the Raimi movies.
Was it one of the Raimi movies?
Yeah,
Okay.
Spider-Man 2, I think it was.
Yeah, because you would fling around the city, and every once in a while there'd just be random crimes you can stop in those games. And in that particular game, sometimes the random crimes you could stop is just the Shocker trying to hold up a armored car or something like that, and you just swing in, beat him up like he's a normal thug, pretty much, and then go about your day.
Yeah. He was in the new game too. PS1, the Shocker was.
Yep.
They threw in a lot of villains in that game, though.
Yeah, how they always do in the video games. They're great.
Yeah, so we got the 2 Shockers. It was kind of cool to see all the different little villain nods that they made in here, or at least allude to like potential future villains too, which they did a little bit. So what about like when we're talking about the way they changed some of the characters? Obviously, one of the big changes for the movie would be MJ.
Yeah.
Who for the entire movie was just Michelle.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the one part I hate about this movie.
It's weird, not because I don't mind them changing MJ to a different character entirely.
Yeah. No,
I don't mind them making her black. I think it's weird that she was Michelle for the whole movie.
Exactly.
And then at the end, she was just like, "Oh, my friends call me MJ."
Yeah.
It's like, why did we have to do it that way?
Yeah.
Like, why couldn't she have just been Mary Jane?
Yeah. Also, like that's not her name if she's supposed to be the MJ.
Yeah.
Like her name is Mary Jane. They don't just call her MJ. It's not
so I thought that was
Michelle,
weird.
yeah,
I'm not sure why
so
they felt the need to do it that way, but
it felt like a
I don't know.
surprise nobody cared about.
Yeah,
like we're gonna
totally.
swerve him here, and then they swerved us, and everybody's like, that it doesn't change
Yeah, all right.
anything. It's
Yeah.
not cool. Why are we doing this? And again, I mean, at the end of the day, I guess it's not that big of a deal that the character has a different name, but it serves no purpose whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
Well, and they changed
and things like that just annoy fanboys. As proof, I'm very annoyed.
Well, and the characterization's completely different too. I mean, we already talked about how like they're all going to like a tech school now.
Exactly.
So now she's also a smart student instead of like supermodel hot like Mary Jane always was.
Yeah.
Mary Jane was like the unobtainable like girl, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, we even had the whole Gwen Stacy thing before he got with Mary Jane.
But like you said, I mean, they've changed all of the kids and friends and stuff like that to kind of fit into this narrative. So that part works fine, I think.
Yeah.
And again, I liked that character quite a bit through the whole movie. I'm fine with her being the love interest. I'm fine with her being this version of Mary Jane. Just really bugs me about the name. Probably more than it should. Does not help knowing that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I remember when all of the early trailers and stuff were coming out for the movie because what's her name? The other girl in the movie that's kind of like the love interest. Liz. So like in the early trailers and everything, everybody kind of wondered if she was Mary Jane. Because that's kind of the way they set it up almost, and she was like the love interest and everything.
Unattainable and supermodel hot.
Yeah, because she's prettier. And,
not that. Can we just say real quick? Not that Zendaya.
Yeah.
Zendaya.
Yeah.
Is not like
Right.
not that she's super attainable. Like if you see her in what was the Greatest Showman?
Yeah.
Man.
Right.
But the way they've got her,
It's just the
dumbed
way.
down.
Exactly.
And
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
The way
they present her in
the
this.
way they
yeah.
present her in this movie is very different than the way we typically see Mary Jane presented as a character.
For sure.
That's what I mean. So I don't know. I'm totally fine with like the direction they're going with it, though. Like the trailers we're seeing for the new movie, they're already kind of going in that direction now, where she's obviously the love interest, right, for
Yeah.
Peter. So
Seems to be.
yeah.
So I wonder how much of that comes back though to what they can and can't use because of the Sony stuff. Like, can we call her MJ, but her name can't be Mary Jane?
That would be
type
weird.
of thing. I mean,
I guess
you
I
know,
have no
like
idea
just
how all
all
this
the
stuff
stuff
works,
that they want to
right?
hang on to.
Yeah.
I mean, because they said Mary Jane a ton in the Into the Spider-Verse,
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so if that was something Sony was like, nope, we don't want to give that up.
I can't.
I mean, it seems
okay.
weird, it seems stupid,
Yep.
but you know, that's those little things that it's like,
Exactly.
you know,
Like I can't imagine, but also I can't argue.
Right.
Yeah.
If I haven't seen Weirder, I've at least seen As Weird.
yeah.
Right.
And I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's it. I'm just
No.
saying maybe,
Yeah.
you know, maybe.
That makes more sense than anything I've thought of.
Yeah.
While ultimately still being stupid.
right.
All right, well, let's get into some more of the plot stuff here. So Spider-Man still like the whole deal at the beginning of the movie is that he's waiting for the Avengers to call.
Yeah.
Right.
I love how
Because-
surprised he was that Tony let him keep the suit.
Yeah.
Like Tony needs a suit shaped like a spider that's a third of his size.
Yeah.
Right. So he keeps bugging Happy and wanting to know if there's missions and everything, which is so great. It's hilarious stuff. But he ultimately stumbles upon Vulture's thugs, like robbing some ATMs, was it? And they've got their tech.
Well, those aren't Vulture thugs. Those are just guys. I
Oh,
think,
who
have
got the
bought
Vulture
weapons
tech.
From, yeah.
That's right, who got the Vulture tech.
And they're all dressed like the Avengers.
Yeah. What a great scene that is, too.
It was funny when he called him out on it. The funniest part was the sandwich shop guy across the street calling 911 going, Spider-Man is fighting the Avengers in this bank?
He goes, oh, the Incredible Hulk, I've always wanted to meet you. Wait, you guys aren't the Avengers. Yeah, that
was another scene that played real big in the trailers, too.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that and being like, that's the Spider-Man I've been...
Yeah,
I've been hoping
well,
for.
yeah, he's very quippy and everything while he's fighting. It's awesome. But as a result of that fight, the tech destroys that sandwich shop across the street and causes all kinds of destruction, which is when Tony intervenes for the first time. And he's basically like, yo, I told you to lay low. And Spider-Man's trying to tell them that there's this weapon tech out there and nobody's paying any attention to it.
Well, that's after the scene with Donald Glover.
Okay, all right.
Tony first shows
oh,
up.
that's
So
when he
that's
first
what-
sees the weapon tech. That's
Yeah,
right.
this is when he first
Yeah.
sees it, and he's kind of freaked out about it and wants to investigate more. And then a little while later, they go, him and Ned go to that party because Ned told everybody he knows Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So he's going to do that classic high school movie trope of some sort where he's trying to pass himself off as the cool one, not willingly, but because his friend ragged him into it. And that goes sideways because his idea of being the cool one is showing up, leaving and letting Spider-Man show up and look for him, and then coming back in, except for when he starts to do the Spider-Man thing, he sees this giant explosion in the woods.
Yeah.
And he's like, maybe I'll go look at that instead.
Right. Okay, so that's where we get the Donald Glover scene and where he sees the weapon tech and everything. Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of become his mission now, right? Because Tony's not listening to him, Happy's not listening to him, so he's like, well, I got to figure out what's going on with these weapons.
I love how they spin this movie into being a high school movie. And they said from the get-go, they're basically trying to make this the MCU version of a John Hughes movie. That was part of the marketing, basically.
Right.
They even do that scene where he's running through those backyards and somebody's watching Ferris Bueller.
Yep.
He's running through those backyards right about here, which also was just so great because he sees that explosion and he's like, oh, I got to get there, and then realizes he's got nowhere to swing.
He's in the suburbs.
Yeah. So he's just
there's no
running
tall
through
buildings.
this golf course.
He shoots the web up and it just goes. That's such a great scene.
But he gets on this chase trying to chase these weapons guys down, and then he ends up getting snagged by the Vulture.
Right.
And just his suit deploys an escape parachute. It's the first time we see that.
Yeah.
That comes back in later movies, except he gets tangled up in it and plunges into some body of water.
Right.
And that's
when Iron Man saves
shows up.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is just the suit without Tony in it.
Yeah. Which somehow, like, when that face popped open and there was nothing in it and they kept talking to him and having mannerisms, that creeped me out for some reason. I don't know. I was fine with it when it was just the flying suit, but all of a sudden it's just got nothing in there, and I'm like,
Oh, man. So let's see, because so Ned finds out that he's Spider-Man at some point after all of this.
Well, it was a little
right?
bit before that, yeah.
Yeah.
We were skipping around a ton.
We are skipping around a ton. Well, because I want to get to the part where they start like hacking the suit. And
Yes.
they realize that they've got the training wheels protocol on. So he gets all offended.
Yeah, I like how he's mad, and Ned's like, you know, he's like, he's treating me like I'm some kid. And Ned's like, you are some kid, you know.
So they hack it and they unlock it. So like Spider-Man's suit in this movie, that's another thing that's kind of new for these movies. Like it is all teched out. Like it is straight up Stark tech. So it's got a talking voice in it, just like Iron Man
Yep.
suits do.
Which is also great because
Yeah.
they got Jennifer Connelly to do the voice of Peter's suit, and it's just one of those fun like real world nods because that's Paul Bettany's wife. Who had always done the Jarvis
Nice.
voice inside of the Iron Man
that's
suits
nice.
for so long, so
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
I like how he has conversations with it though, like he's telling her about Liz, and she's just like responding and asking questions about Liz. Like what? This tech is crazy. Like
Yeah. She's very encouraging.
she's very encouraging. Yeah. Well, I love though when he first shows up to stop those guys when he's just unlocked the training wheels protocol, and now he doesn't know what anything does anymore. So like he shoots like the electric webs. He's like, why is it electric webs? I just need regular webs.
And I like how the suit is confused.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, because she's like, you know, you seem really awkward with a lot of this stuff. You know, but you've passed all the protocols. She's like, oh, yeah. That's, they make a Triskelion reference in that scene, too, where he is, after he first unlocks them all, and he is looking for, this is when they're in, like, the Washington area.
Yeah.
And he's looking for the bad guy's lair, which was also hilarious.
Oh.
You know, because they got to have a lair there or something. And it's like, you think they have a lair? But when he first finds out he can do this, the surveillance stuff with the suit.
Yeah.
And so he's listening to those guys' conversation, and they're talking about the ships coming down in Winter Soldier.
Right.
And how, you know, they just keep making these messes, and we just can keep coming in and cleaning them up.
Yeah.
You know? So I thought that was a neat little MCU nod.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also.
Yeah. So the Washington Monument thing was next, right? Because
Yeah, he gets trapped in that bunker for a while.
Yeah.
And then finds out that the tech that Ned has in his backpack is basically a bomb.
Right.
That'll go off if it gets any radiation near it.
Oh, right. Which gets activated when they go through the X-ray
Yeah.
detectors.
Yeah.
The X-ray machines.
Yeah. So he spends the next, 5 minutes of movie, so however many hours of real time trying to get out of that bunker.
Right.
They do that montage where he's doing all that stuff while he's waiting for the doors to open, and then he's all of a sudden just laying there and having that real deep conversation with Karen, his AI, from the suit. And he's like, how long we been here anyway? And she's like, 37 minutes. But yeah, he gets out of that room and runs up and does the Washington Monument
Yeah.
bit there.
Saves everybody at the Washington Monument because the tech blows up and the elevator's falling.
Yep.
And I like how Flash just saves himself in the trophy.
I like when he ran up and MJ or whatever her name is was at the bottom still.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, my friends are in there," and he's like, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it."
Well,
He makes his voice real deep.
He does the Brooklyn thing like super deep. Like he
Yeah.
shows up, he's like, "Hey, how you doing? Hang on, I'm gonna get you out of there."
I also love that joke at the beginning of that because, we forgot to bring up Martin Starr making his second MCU.
Mr. Cligoris?
Yep.
Cligoris?
Yep.
Either pronunciation works.
We get a lot of Community people in MCU movies, which why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But this is also his second MCU movie because he was in the Incredible Hulk for that half a second. He was when Banner bribes his way into that computer lab.
Oh, yeah.
With pretending to be a pizza guy.
Yeah.
And Martin Starr's in the lab just holding his pizza up like, yeah.
I mean, I assume it's the same character, right?
Totally
could
Like,
be.
yeah.
Totally could be.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
absolutely.
No reason for it not to be.
We get the other. We're kind of getting off track here again, but the high school principal at Peters High School is the same actor who played one of the Howling Commandos in first
Oh, yeah.
Avenger, and I don't remember if it was a verbal reference, or I think it was just maybe a picture in
got
his
that
office.
picture.
But they it's like he's like the grandson of his
Right.
That's awesome.
actual character. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
And while we're naming people, the coach is
Hannibal Buress.
Yeah, Hannibal Buress. Yeah.
which that's one of those I'm almost a little scared because I'm like, man, I feel like they could have done more with Hannibal Buress. But maybe we'll get 2 or 3 more movies with him, you know.
No,
but
man, that's where we want Hannibal Buress.
Oh, dude. When they do that bit, because they've got Captain America
Yeah.
on the TV screen being like, all right, you're going to run through this fitness thing that you're required to do, and me and your my good friend, your coach here, and he's like pointing to the right, and the coach is standing on the left, and it's Hannibal Buress going, pretty sure this guy's a war criminal now, but we got to do this.
Yeah, whatever, we got to show him.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But I was getting to at the bottom of the Washington Monument, they do that bit with Martin Starr when MJ decides she's not going to go up.
Yeah.
You know, she's like, I don't really want to celebrate this building built by slaves or whatever. And he's like, I don't really think this was. And he turns around and there's a security guard behind him, like nodding, like, yeah.
And he just drops it. He's like, okay.
So she's down there. Peter shows up, does his Brooklyn accent, and starts running up the building.
Yeah.
And I love the way they portray Spider-Man doing all this stuff here is because he is flying by the seat of his pants. you know?
Right.
We've talked about that with different characters before. You know how like Tony's always got a plan, but Cap is always reacting. And I feel like Spider-Man's like caught right in the middle there. Like he's doing everything. Like he's trying to figure out actual like logic to some of this stuff that's going on. He's trying to use the tools at his disposal, but he's in way over his head, and basically just has to do anything he can think of to do and hope that it works.
Right,
you know?
right.
But he gets up to the top there. They got that really cool scene, which is another thing in the trailers they showed a lot of him jumping over that helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's basically trying to get through this reinforced glass and doesn't have the pressure to do it, and so he just leaps over this helicopter, swings in for the added momentum, and busts through that glass and saves the elevator right at the last second.
Yeah.
Which even that goes terribly a few times before he actually finishes, you know. And then that's where Flash was trying to save himself and the trophy.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they do that great bit where he's hanging there upside down in front of the girl of his dreams. Very reminiscent of the old Raimi movies, you know, and he's even got Karen in his head going, "This is your moment, Peter. Kiss her. Do it." And right then the web breaks and he just goes plummeting down through the smoke. And Flash immediately just looks over and is like, "Do you really know Peter Parker?" Yeah. Like everything about that, just bang, 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 bang. It was so awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. Oh my gosh. So the boat scene is our next big moment, right? The ship.
Yep.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Because this is where. What is it? Why does he even go? He follows.
He finds out from Donald Glover that
That's right. That's right. This is where he goes
the
back.
bad
and
guys are going to be
on.
on that boat. They're going to do some weapons deal with the Scorpion.
Right. Yeah, with the Scorpion.
Yeah.
This scene is really cool. Like all the fighting that happens here. It was fun watching this because I felt like I've been playing a lot of the Spider-Man PS4 game. So much that he does in this is like stuff you do in that game, which was amazing. This was out way before that, but I just thought it was so much fun because like he hits a couple guys with like the trip mine type webbing where they like hits them and they get sucked to the wall, and like he does just like all these little things, these weird gadgets that you get to see. Like he just uses all these crazy web gadgets in this scene, and it's so much fun. Just watching him blast guys and shooting them up against the wall and all that stuff.
It makes me laugh because he's like calling everything out as he does it.
Yeah.
Like web grenade, taser web.
Yeah.
Punch in the face.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. The taser webs and everything. Yeah, it's awesome. But in this is the scene though, because Vulture is there too and shows up right in his wings and everything.
Well, and I think this was the first time that Peter met with the second Shocker, isn't it? Because now it's Bokeem Woodbine because we got past the part where Vulture straight up murdered the first Shocker accidentally.
Yeah. Did you say you thought it was like a levitation gun?
Yeah, he's like, I thought this was the anti-gravity gun, and the Tinkerer's like, no, that one's over there. And he's like, oh, well.
Oh, it just makes me wonder what was he going to do with the anti-gravity gun?
Shoot him and make him float.
Yeah,
That'll teach him.
Well, then he can't get away.
I can't afford that.
Yeah.
I'll just leave you hover here forever.
What worse torture than just sitting there floating in the room full of the guys who made you float? Like, I'm hungry.
Oh my
Fair
god.
call.
It's gonna wear off. But so yeah, he gets in that little fight with the Shocker there, and then the Vulture shows up,
Yeah.
full blown, and he's got the wings and his own tech.
Right.
They're going after because he loses that gun somehow.
Well, he's got the gun that he melted the first Shocker with.
Yeah.
And Peter steals it, and it goes into like
Yeah,
rubs
it
it
goes
away,
into,
and
like,
it goes into like
meltdown mode,
overload.
yeah.
Yeah, so he tries to web it up to stop it because he soaks it in web and like he thinks he's got it, but it ultimately just breaks loose, and that's when it like saws the boat in half.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is kind of one of those classic like.
Which I like how everybody just happened to be on one side or the other.
Oh, nobody got
just
fried.
got cut in half.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
but
worst
it did,
case of getting cut in half.
but it did kind of show people like running away, like splitting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like nobody got cut in half, and probably some people should have got cut in half. But it's not like they were all just on either side, like a girls and boys high school dance. You know what I mean? Like, it did
Sadie
show-
Hawkins ferry ride.
It did show him kind of running and like, oh my gosh, what are we doing?
Yeah. But when Peter goes to save the boat, I felt like this was such a classic like Spider-Man movie moment, right? Like this felt like when he stopped the train.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, the same kind of a thing.
Partially because they gave him basically the same pose.
Right,
and
yeah.
everything,
Like he
yeah.
webs the whole thing together and then he's just like holding the boat halves together right there, and I like how he thinks he's done it, and then it doesn't quite work, and then
Yeah.
that's when Iron Man actually shows up and says,
And that other dude thinks he's done it too. Yay, Spider-Man!
Yeah. Well, and then the same guy
Yeah.
like cheers for Iron Man
Yeah.
at the end. Yeah, Iron Man.
Yep.
Well, because Karen's even still encouraging him, like, hey, great job, Peter. You were 98% effective. And he's like, 98%? And then the whole thing just explodes.
Yeah. So Tony shows up for real this time too,
Yeah.
because he comes and saves the day. And like Peter even makes that comment, like you couldn't even bother to show up in person, and then he lifts the mask and Tony's actually there in the suit this time. And he's basically just tells him again to like you're in over your head kind of a thing, right? Gives him
Yeah,
the same kind
really
of speech.
scolding him.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
he really scolds him and he takes the suit away.
Yeah.
Cancels everything.
That's right.
You're done.
That's
You're
right.
done.
Takes the Spider-Man suit away. You're done being Spider-Man. Look at all these problems you've caused. I felt like that really plays into the whole Sokovia Accords thing, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
Like he's basically telling Spider-Man that he shouldn't be doing this kind of thing. He shouldn't be just getting himself involved in all this stuff. Like, doesn't that feel like it kind of fits in line with Tony's kind of logic now about all this stuff?
Yeah.
Almost? Yeah.
Because theoretically, Tony should be telling him at this point to register.
Oh, that's right. That's
You know,
right, yeah.
If he hadn't already pre-registered him.
Well, I think he kind of felt that maybe he registered him. Maybe I never thought about that. But I do kind of feel like at the end of Civil War, he was kind of out on the registry. You know what I mean? Like he had questioned himself enough that
You just kind of let it go.
yeah.
Yeah.
And at least maybe with a 14-year-old kid.
Well,
I'm
and
not
I
gonna,
think too that's like I always felt like that was why he was so hard on keeping him as grounded as he could, is because it's like you're doing your thing and I'm happy for you and I understand having these powers and needing to do something,
right?
But that doesn't mean you need to go fight an alien invasion.
Yeah,
you just take care of some muggers for a while and cut your teeth on that.
Yeah. Although if we think about it, since he brought him in to help bring Cap's team together, you almost feel like you would have had to have registered him at that point. Like, hey, you're coming with us. Oh, here, register this real quick.
Yeah.
Now let's go get Captain America.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know. I've never thought about that before.
Yeah.
You would assume there would have to be some kind of confidentiality with registering for the Accords. At least the way they portrayed it. I think.
Well, because the other thing I would think is if he was registered, you'd think the government would be trying to use him for something.
Yeah.
And we don't ever see anything like that, know. But maybe that's Tony protecting him too,
right?
So because he is so young, know. So maybe it's one of those things like we'll register him, but
maybe
you can't actually draft this kid.
Yeah,
he's in high school.
He's got like a learner's permit.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go. Yeah.
Learner's permit for your superpowers.
So I think that pretty much brings us to the homecoming scene, right?
Yeah,
Which is
one.
I want to bring something up because before we get to the homecoming scene, we get the scene where he's kind of just back to being a high schooler, which I think is a really cool scene, really good scene to see him kind of go through that.
Yeah.
And I like the characterization. I think they really capture what a 15-year-old would be like in that situation, losing it. From waiting for Happy to call him for something to going out and doing his own and being mad that he's being treated like a kid to when it gets taken away and how he reacts, just kind of falling back into his routine, but clearly going through the motions. I think they capture that real well.
And I like, too, and this is definitely me as a Spider-Man fan reading way too much into it, most likely. But I liked that because it kind of gave you this glimpse of what Peter's life was like when he wasn't Spider-Man.
Yes.
And in, this version of the world, he's doing okay, you know? He's not the nerdy kid getting picked on all the time or anything like that. I don't know if he's the coolest kid in school or not, but he runs with those guys. They're actually his peers, not other people who are intimidated by him.
Yeah.
And so they go through that scene where, things are working out for him. The teachers like him. He's getting his answers right. He's asking the girl of his dreams out to homecoming. She's accepting.
She's down for it,
she says yes,
his world is pretty good without being Spider-Man.
Yep.
Which has sort of always been kind of one of the overarching themes of Spider-Man is Parker's got this responsibility. He's got to do what he does. He wants to do what he does. But also, it causes him nothing but problems.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is sort of like our little glimpse at
what it'd
that
be like,
happening here, right here. Because you look at it and realize, if he weren't Spider-Man, he'd be so much happier. Even in these, right now, it's the little ways.
Yeah.
But it's still that foreshadowing.
Yep. So the other thing that we talked about early, how we'd had several Spider-Man backstories already.
Yeah.
And in recent memory, you know, and we were glad they didn't do that. So having hot young cool Aunt May makes me kind of want to see the background. You know what I mean? For real. Because she's showing them how to dance and stuff, while they're when they're getting ready for homecoming and stuff. And, she's like that cool aunt.
Yeah.
Which is different than what we're used to, because we're used to, half decrepit old Aunt May.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And it made me, this scene was making me think about that and kind of I wonder what that, So now I want a flashback where Uncle Ben is I don't know, Brad Pitt or Matthew McConaughey. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Because he's got to be a cool younger
With
uncle.
Great power comes great responsibility. All right.
Yeah. So it also kind of makes me wonder, just wonder about his parents. Just that one little change. You know what I mean? Kind of makes me wonder, well, how is it different than what I normally think of? You know what I mean? So I thought that was
do with it.
Right.
And as much as I didn't want another Spider-Man origin story, I would like to know what the Uncle Ben in this world looks like, at least.
Yep.
And I thought about that from the get-go. I was fine with them not going through the death scene.
Yeah.
And in this first movie, I'm fine with them not even barely referencing him.
Yes.
Because we've done it. We can move on.
Yep.
But I don't want to see 4 of these Spider-Man movies and never hear about Uncle Ben.
Yeah. I don't want to see...
At some point, they got to work the memory in it.
Yep. I don't want to see another... I don't want to see a prequel.
Yeah.
I don't want to see, Spider-Man... Summer Vacation.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But I won't mind a flashback or two.
Yeah, Ben's supposed to be so important to the character, right?
Exactly.
So, and it's so important to why he decided to be Spider-Man.
Yes. Yep.
So now we're at homecoming.
And then we move into gotta be my favorite scene in this movie. One of my favorite scenes in the MCU.
Yes.
Right?
Because first of all, when they open that door, and it's another one of those moments where I'm like, this isn't the biggest swerve in MCU history by any means. But when he goes to Liz's house and that door opens and Michael Keaton's standing there, I was shocked.
Yeah.
I did not see
what
that
a great,
at all.
It was perfect.
Yep.
It was the perfect swerve.
Yep.
I remember even sitting in a theater and that happening, and you almost just felt the tension in the theater. Everybody was like, oh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh, man.
And masterfully played by both of these guys.
Yeah.
Because Peter, you can immediately see it's just that tension is thick right there.
Yes.
And that would make sense to the dad of the girl he's coming to pick up. So he doesn't really pick up on it at all because it's just this awkward kid walking in really tense to meet, and he's just giving him crap for
especially when the kid is from the nerd high school with the, you know what I mean, or the elevator, whatever it is, you know what I mean.
No offense.
Or take offense, I don't care. I'll be the Flash Thompson of the table.
You'll be Flash Thompson. I like it.
Geeks hate nerds.
Anyway.
But yeah, I mean, Michael Keaton's just playing it like a blue collar
Straightforward.
dad would.
Yeah.
You know, this kid's here to pick up my daughter. I'm gonna bust his chops for a while.
Right.
You know? And
So
then
I give him the ride.
yeah, it's on the car ride over where they start talking about everything. And,
Yeah.
you know, Liz brings up how Peter knows Spider-Man, and you know, Michael Keaton's like, oh, you know Spider-Man, do you? And then they start referencing these moments where Peter was there and then disappeared, and Michael Keaton puts it all together, and like, these are all Spider-Man appearances. And just, I mean, you can watch his face with the realization.
Yep.
And again, Peter's just sitting back there like barely speaking.
Yeah.
And just trying to cover his tracks when he can, but he can't. And I think he knows it too.
Yeah.
And they even get that moment at the stoplight where he, you know, like Vulture's just staring at him through that mirror, and the light turns green, and it's got to be Liz who's like, "Dad, we can go now."
Yeah.
And then the crux, like the main part of the scene, the one I could sit there and watch over and over again, is when they get there and he's like, why don't you go in, honey? I'm going to have a talk with your boyfriend here.
It's like, I'm going to have the dad talk.
Yeah. You know, and just immediately pulls that gun and lays it all out for Peter. And again, it just reminds you how good of an actor Michael Keaton can be.
Man, dude.
How great of a character they've turned this into. I mean, that, like I said, that's one of my favorite villain moments for sure.
Well, I think it's super smart to let that villain do it because he really is just kind of a blue-collar guy. And, you know, so you almost can believe a lot of times you got the supervillain, you know, he like when the supervillain is like some kind of like cackling, you know, like you can almost be like, well, he wouldn't think that Spider-Man can't be this kid, you know,
right.
But he's just, you know, he's just super. He takes everything at face value because he's just a blue collar, you know, foreman, whatever he was, you know, contractor, you know, so he just takes it at face value, and you can even buy that. If the lines add up, even if this kid wasn't Spider-Man, this kid's in trouble now. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, it just makes sense because he's not going to question it. He's just going to trust his gut, and that's it.
Yep.
I thought, you know, it's a great move for him to do.
Yeah, and you know, and he doesn't give him like the villain speech or anything like that. It's not like I'm going to take over the world and you can't stop me or any of that nonsense. He's like lays it flat out like, look, I respect you. I understand why my daughter likes you. I am going to do whatever I have to do to protect my family, even if that's murdering you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Kill you dead.
Yeah.
He talks to him like a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
He talks to him like a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah. And you know, and lets him go.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically, he's like, go make the right decision.
Yeah, he's like, go in there,
'Cause
show
you
my
messed-
daughter
yeah,
a good time.
Yep.
Not too good. Yeah. That's awesome.
God, he's so dad and villain and
Yeah.
everything just wrapped into one there.
Yeah.
God, I love Michael Keaton.
So
also the dudes who wrote Michael Keaton.
Oh,
good
for
job,
sure.
guys.
Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely. But I also love too, like how Peter decides, like he's gonna still act on this, and then we find out that he purposely left his cell phone inside the car so that they could track the car. Like I love that. Like, that's so awesome.
I like how they were planning against each other.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
because he did the cell phone bit so he could track him.
Right.
Smart. Vulture knew there's a good chance he was going to follow him, so he left Shocker there to take care of that.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like this kid makes the wrong choice, end him.
Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So Peter bails on Homecoming.
Yeah. And man, a lot of this movie is just Peter crapping on Liz too.
Oh, I know, man. I know. But it's so, I mean, it's perfect for the character, man. Like, this is exactly the kind of stuff that Peter Parker faces on a regular basis.
And I like how he's just...
Is she going to become Doc Ock? Was Liz the name of the female Doc Ock in Spider-Verse?
Like the ultimate Doc Ock or whatever it was.
Yeah, I don't know.
Was
something
she
Octavius,
was she Liv or Liz?
Was she an Octavius?
She was an Octavius
Okay.
because her last name was Octavius, remember? Because they did that whole bit into the Spider-Verse where they were like, what did you say your name was again?
Yeah.
And then she said something Octavius.
Yeah.
And then
I
he goes,
mean, that-
of course.
however,
you're the
we-
Doc Ock of this universe.
We've discussed the naming conventions.
Yeah.
And how they don't necessarily mesh. I mean,
Yeah.
if they wanted to do something like that, they could. And she's super smart,
Yeah,
you know?
that's what it just
Yeah.
occurred to me.
I don't know.
look
That's
up-
interesting.
I'm
I
gonna
like
look up
that.
what her name was in the
Yeah.
Spider-Verse.
Yeah. We'll keep running with that, and I'll keep running with the rundown, I guess. So we get that scene where the Shocker shows up and he even says, you know, like, hey, he gave you the chance. You know, you made the wrong decision, and is just pummeling Peter because he lost his web shooters right at the beginning.
Right,
of the fight.
and he's only got the one. Did you notice that? Like, he looks like he's got one web shooter when he's in his homemade
Yeah.
costume. He doesn't have, like, what?
Well, I was just no. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I thought you. Yeah,
I also like too how he hid the old janky costume just under a
his
row of
locker. He
lockers.
picks up the row of
Yeah,
lockers
yeah.
and has the suit. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
So did you notice how much I'd never noticed this before? That suit is like the Scarlet Spider suit
With the
I-
colors
similar.
backwards.
Yeah,
The
With
colors, are
colors
switched.
backwards
Because
Is it red and
Scarlet
blue?
Spider has
Okay.
a blue hoodie with a red suit, and
Yeah,
this was a
man,
blue
it's
suit
been
with a
so
red
long
hoodie.
since,
I was gonna bring it up. I was like, this is
Yep.
basically the MCU Scarlet Spider suit. It's
Yeah.
just the colors are
Yep,
backwards.
Yep, and it's got those little goggles.
And it's got like
Yeah.
the weird goggles on the
Yeah.
mask
But
instead of
no,
the actual
yep.
Spider mask.
Yep, I love
But
that.
Yeah.
I also love how like that's the costume he came up with, you know.
Yeah.
Which is because you remember this is a kid who's dumpster diving for computer parts.
Right.
Which
right.
is why I loved so much when he was surprised that Tony let him keep a suit.
Yeah.
Because from our perspective, it's like, what the heck is he going to do with that suit? But again, this is a kid who, the first time we met him, is literally dumpster diving for old computer parts.
Right.
So when, like, the biggest billionaire on the planet shows up and is like, here, take this high-tech suit, you know, like, why wouldn't he be shocked by that?
Right.
You know?
right.
Just before we roll on, Doc Ock was Liv.
Oh,
Olivia.
okay.
Olivia.
Olivia Octavius.
So, yep.
Okay.
All right, so never
So
mind.
it was
Sorry.
still an O,
Yeah.
just like Otto Octavius.
Well,
but
she was
Octavius.
Olivia Octavius. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Next time I'll just let
Oh,
you
oh,
finish.
yeah.
Next time.
Can he finish?
I think she must be like a Doc Ock from the Ultimate Universe or something
think
like
so,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
So.
So Ned shows up and saves the day because right when Shocker's about to deliver the death blow, he gets webbed up from off screen and they pan over and there's Ned in that wonderful hat.
Yeah. His fedora.
Yeah, just holding the web shooter
Yeah,
and he's
yeah.
got them all webbed up and that gives Peter the time to jump back to take care of the Shocker, web bomb him up against that bus.
Yeah.
And take off. Which is right about the time. I mean, he basically tells Ned, "You got to be my guy in the chair," which is what Ned's wanted the whole time anyway.
Right.
You know, you go figure out how to contact Happy and go figure out, you know, how to track my cell phone or whatever. Which we always have to remember how smart all these kids are. Because it's funny to me that another 15-year-old is going and hacking into Happy Hogan's cell phone.
Yeah.
To get,
yeah.
you know, but this is also the kid who hacked Tony Stark's spider suit.
That's what
Right,
I was going to say.
right,
I have to,
right.
I have to remind myself that every time it gets to that scene.
Yeah.
And when they're hacking the spider suit, I'm like,
Yeah.
what are these kids? Stark? Oh, well, they're all gifted kids.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
They're all gifted nerds.
Nerds.
All of our audio listeners just missed the face that Jared made.
You have
The
to,
snarl.
you have to go check out the YouTube to see the snarl.
So this is also where Peter shows up and steals Flash's car, which I think is great because Flash hasn't shown himself to be like a huge Spider-Man fan like he becomes.
Yeah.
We're getting a glimpse of that in the new previews, though,
Yeah.
for the second movie. But it's funny to me to know that he becomes that after this moment because he basically lands on the car, does that voice again. You know,
Yeah.
he's like, "I need your car." And he's like, "Well, actually, it's my dad's car. I can't really." And then the next scene, we see him just speeding off, except he's never driven before.
Yeah.
So he's just plowing into bicycles and whatever else, trying to get out on the street. So you know, Spider-Man showed up, stole that car, drove away, and still this Flash kid is just a huge mark for him.
Come on, man. That's the coolest thing that's ever happened.
Yeah,
for sure,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
The superhero needed his car.
Yeah. But we get Peter chasing down the Vulture.
Which we didn't even really talk about. Like the thing that Happy's been doing this whole movie is moving the Avengers stuff out of Avengers Tower.
moving day.
Because they've got the new headquarters now, which we've seen in a couple movies. But they're apparently this is the point where they're emptying the tower. And And so this big last job that Vulture's pulling is to hijack this jet that's got all of this Avengers tech on it.
Because the other thing, the whole movie, the Tinkerer has been talking about the high altitude weapon, or not weapon, but
SEAL.
The SEAL he's designed, and keeps talking about the one big job, and Vulture keeps shooting him down.
Yeah.
Like, too big, we're not doing that. Because their whole point is they stay below the radar.
Right.
Like, they don't want damage control, which was a cool reference also.
Yeah.
It's like, they don't want the Avengers. They don't want anybody showing up. They're just going to lay low. They're going to steal the small-time stuff. That's enough for them to get what they need.
Right.
These guys are not trying to take over the world. These are blue-collar supervillains.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just such a funny phrase. But finally, everything goes wrong, and they keep losing out on all these jobs because Spider-Man keeps stepping in. So finally, it's like, all right, we're going to do one last job. We're going to steal one more thing. They don't tell us what it is yet, but they make a reference to how, like a small victory will set them for life, and they'll be fine. And so we find out that the basic plan is they know that everything is moving from Stark Tower on that giant autopilot jumbo cargo jet.
Yeah.
And so they're just going to sneak into that, steal what they can, and go. And Peter kind of puts that together here because Ned tells him, I don't think Happy likes you very much. Also, he sounded really busy. He was saying something about, takeoff time or something like that. And that's when Peter realizes, like, oh, it's moving day. That's what they're doing. They're going to rob the plane.
Yeah.
So he's got to get to the Vulture in time to stop that from happening, which is leads to another great Michael Keaton exchange with Spider-Man there, because Spider-Man shows up and Michael Keaton's like, figured you might come, I gave you the chance, blah blah blah, and is just talking him up, and he gives him one of my favorite lines when he talks about right and wrong, and Peter's like, well, I don't know all this stuff, but I know selling weapons to criminals is wrong. And Vulture goes, how do you think your buddy Stark made all that money? Mm-hmm. And again, it's one of those moments where you just come back down, you're like totally rooting for this guy.
Man.
Yeah, this is the moment where I just am totally like, well, I hope Spider-Man dies.
Isn't it amazing?
Let's go Tombs.
How many of these movies just keep bringing that up and how justified they always are.
Man.
Yeah.
They always keep going back to, well, Stark sold a whole bunch of weapons, and that's how he got his billions.
Yeah.
And you're always like, yep, that's definitely a true thing. That's definitely real.
Yeah. It's just one of the, all the messes Tony causes. It's not like Tony's a bad guy, but he is as much or more trouble,
right?
Than he's worth in a lot of times,
right?
But it's true too. I mean, you talk about in real life, they have the saying, behind every great fortune is a great crime, right? I mean, the Kennedys, who are like American royalty, they were bootleggers,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
that's crazy.
So it fits.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I love, too, like, all the stuff that's on that plane. Like, you see the stuff he's going to steal. It's, like, a bunch of Iron Man armor stuff. And, like, he's just got all kinds of, like, Avengers tech. And
I like when Happy's on the phone and he's like, yeah, the only things we still got to load up are, like, Tony's old Hulkbuster armor and the new designs on Cap's prototype shield. And I can't even remember what he was trying to say, but he's like, the trip, Thor's magic belt.
Yeah.
Which we looked up when that happened, and we're like, oh, that is a real thing. Didn't know about it because it was in a Thor comic.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, but, we're getting this speech from Michael Keaton, and Spider-Man's like, why are you telling me all this anyway? He's like, well, for one, because I respect you and I wanted you to know it. For two, because I needed to buy time for my wings to come and murder you.
Yeah.
And so they bust in and start flying around the room, and he does that bit where he's like, hi, you missed me, and Vulture's like, well, they weren't aiming for you. And then the whole building just falls on Peter.
Yeah. That's a great scene, too. And I think that's one of those scenes that they ripped directly from comic books. I remember seeing... after that movie came out, people had posted like panels from an issue of the comics that was identical to the scene, with him talking to himself and seeing his reflection with the half mask, and then finding the strength to pull himself out from under the building. Was straight out of the comics.
Nice.
And I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Because I love that scene where like he looks in the water and you get the half spider face thing.
Yeah.
Because that is such like a comic book thing.
Yeah.
Like we saw that so much in the comics with the half Peter, half Spider-Man face. I loved it. I thought that was such a great, felt like a very comic book scene for him. But that's great. He finds the strength and he lifts the building up off of himself and he gets himself free to go finish the fight.
Yeah. And he's got that, because he's a 15-year-old pleading for help.
Yeah.
for a moment in that
Yeah,
scene too.
yeah.
He's just screaming, "Somebody come help me! I'm trapped under here. I can't move. I can't breathe.
Right,
whatever."
right,
and
right.
losing his mind. And then he's got that memory of Stark basically telling him, "If you can't handle it without the suit, then you don't deserve the suit anyway."
Right.
And he finds the strength to
Right.
push himself forward and go and. And I don't, how does he even? I mean, does he just find the Vulture on takeoff and attach himself to him?
Well, the Vulture had jumped up. He didn't go very far. Remember,
Yeah.
he just jumped up on like that billboard and he's watching the Stark thing. He's watching Stark's plane take off.
Okay.
And so by the time the kid is pushed out and got his mask back on, he's just starting to take off and he just barely gets and
Okay.
latches onto him.
Yeah, I remember Vulture on the headcom being like, we got some resistance, and the guy being like, probably just the new thing working the kinks out or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I couldn't remember how he actually got.
Well, that
Right.
was the one thing. I feel like I just would have looked back. Like before I said anything, I'd have been like, "This is weird." Oh, there's a Spider-Man back there.
There's a Spider-Man on me.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, "This isn't handling right." Hey, this isn't handling right. I guess I'll just keep going. Hold on, man. This thing has me suspended thousands of feet in the air. I'm at least gonna look.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
man.
Yeah, they fly up to that giant plane. He uses this tech to seal himself in, and they've got this tech anyway that basically phases through
Right.
solid objects that they've been using the whole time. So he gets himself onto the ship, and that's where we see the artifacts or
Yeah.
whatever we would call them
Yeah.
on the ship itself.
Crate full of arc reactors.
Yeah, all the arc reactors.
Yeah.
Like, holy cow.
And that's also where the Tinkerer says, you get one box out of this thing, and we're set forever.
Right.
And Vulture's like, nope, we're up here anyway. We're going to take as much as we can. And Spider-Man's on the outside, basically just trying to dislodge the seal.
Yep.
Then ensues the giant air battle,
Right.
which is kind of what I've been waiting for this whole movie because of the video games. Right. I was like, I've fought Vulture in video games before. It's usually kind of frustrating from a button smashing perspective, but pretty neat visually.
Yeah. No joke. Just like in this recent game, it was just like that.
Yeah.
Lots of webbing and attaching to him and swinging behind him. And
Yeah. And not too terribly disappointed by any means from this. Not my favorite action scene from anything, but worthwhile.
Yeah.
A fun little watch, and the whole thing revolves around basically that plane on autopilot, which had been diverted in a different direction, and now Peter's trying to move it back. And so he's just webbing it up, trying to basically fly this plane as it's going crashing towards the ground, trying to dodge any kind
city.
of exactly,
Dude,
buildings or anything. And Happy's watching the whole thing. From
From the tower.
Yeah.
Well, how crazy is that scene too, though? Where like they both fly out and they fly towards the wing, and like you see Vulture like smash into the wing on the one side, and Peter just goes straight into the turbine engine, and you're like, oh no! And then like the camera pans around, and he like webbed up the turbine just in time, where he's like sitting inside of it. It's crazy.
I can't believe that worked.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And this is another, like, this whole action scene, he's just quipping. Because he's, like, climbing up on it in the first place. He's like, just another night on an invisible jet, or hanging outside an invisible jet, trying to stop my girlfriend's dad from robbing it, Typical homecoming.
Oh, man.
But they do crash the plane.
Yeah.
But they avoid the city. They
Yeah.
just run into an empty
Beach.
carnival instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, man, that's a
Still
big...
kind of outside the carnival. They hit that one building.
Yeah.
It's not like they crashed through the Ferris wheel.
Fair enough. I just know that's a big plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they luckily find a remote place to bring down there. But we get the end there, and I mean we're at the end part here. There's just that final fight, which is basically Vulture on top, owning Peter.
Yeah.
Just pounding him into the ground. They do that thing where
with
he's
his barely functional wings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do that thing where they have to lose the mask of the hero in the last scene.
Yeah. I know.
So he's got his mask off, and he's just like up and down, pounding him into the ground. And Peter notices that the reactor on the wings is starting to do the same thing that the thing Ned had did.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to tell Vulture that's going to
blow
happen.
up.
Yeah, it's going to blow up. It's going to blow up. And Vulture's just like, sayonara, sucker. and tries to take off, and he's yelling at him like, I'm trying to save you, and instead Vulture just explodes.
Yeah.
Which I thought was great too, because that happened, and I was like, he was so good, why do they have to kill him all? And then like the next scene, he's just knocked out there with the Spider-Man note next to him. I'm like, this movie's perfect.
Yeah. I love how Spider-Man webbed him up and left the note. That's so great. I love it.
Yeah, they did the note bit a couple of times in here. I got super happy every time.
I love it.
Because he even said on this one, he's like, here's your weird flying vulture guy or whatever, and then there was like a P.S. Sorry about your plane.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the very end though. We get like Tony and Peter together. Like Happy brings Peter to Tony.
Well,
right?
we find out that Liz has to leave school.
That's right.
So there's a bit of an aftermath.
That's right.
She's got to move away because her dad doesn't want them around for all the trial stuff.
Yeah.
And Peter goes to apologize to her and gets very cold reception, because basically for standing me up at homecoming, that sucked, but I've got bigger things to worry about, and I don't think she realizes that he's apologizing for that too.
right
because she has no idea that he's responsible for that,
right, exactly.
But that's kind of one of those, a little bit of a gut wrencher watching a bunch of 15-year-olds go through problems like that. And then that's when we get Happy in the bathroom.
Oh my god, that kid. I love how they just drag that scene out, too. That kid flushes the toilet, walks out, washes his hands, dries his hands, looks over at Happy with a confused look on his face, then leaves the bathroom.
Puts that whole thing into awkward perspective. Because Peter comes in and Happy's trying to lay his heart out to him for a minute, like, I really want to thank you, this job's really important, and starts to tell him a story, and then we just hear this flush, and this kid walks out, and Peter's like, how long you been standing in here? And Happy's like, long enough to make it weird. Yeah. And he's like, Tony wants to see you, and he points, and Spider-Man's like, is he here? And Happy's like, in the toilet? No. He's upstate.
Oh, man. This was a great scene though too, because Tony basically is like, all right, you did it, you proved yourself, you were right the whole time, so you get to be an Avenger now, congratulations. And he reveals the Iron Spider suit, which comes back into play later on. But I remember even at the time we were like, that's got to be the Iron Spider costume, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then Peter ultimately turns it down. And I love too, because they do the thing where he's just like, oh, that was a test, right? And Tony's like, yeah, good job, kid.
Tony's like, we got 50 reporters back here waiting to see you, and then he turns it down and does all that, and then as soon as Spider-Man walks away, the door opens and Pepper comes out, and there's 50 reporters in there, Which also the return of Pepper.
Yeah.
Remember the last time we saw Tony was in Civil War, and they were going over how they were on a break because he had screwed it up, basically.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, so they're back together. Well, I love this too, because she's like, what are we going to tell him? And then he's like, Happy you still got that ring? And Happy's like, I've been carrying this ring since 2008.
And the look Pepper gives him.
Yeah.
What? And I couldn't even tell who she was more thrown off by, because this was basically Tony going, well, we need a story, why don't I just propose?
Yeah.
She's like, what?
But also how terrified did Tony look after that, too? When he asked if he had the ring and he said yes, all of a sudden Tony was kind of like, okay. He was super scared about the whole thing.
But then he still took the ring out there, so he absolutely went out there and proposed to her in front of all those reporters.
That's so great. Oh, man. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
Then you get Peter walking down the stairs, and then all of a sudden, Blitzkrieg Bop.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, let's go.
I can't hear that song anymore without thinking of Accepted.
Oh, nice.
My gosh.
And then I just felt like this whole movie was the Avengers version of Accepted, which is
right.
way better than the Avengers version of the John Hughes movie, in my opinion.
Nice.
I think it's fun because Blitzkrieg Bop is now my son's favorite song.
Yeah,
because of
this movie.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Let's go.
one of Spencer's favorite songs now is, and we'll get to this in the next episode, is he always wants to listen to Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin.
Yep. And why wouldn't he?
He's like, I want to listen to the Thor song.
Yeah.
And then he gets so excited every time that song comes
Which
on.
I
It's
will,
amazing.
for the rest of my life, if I live to eternity, which I might, I will never hear that song and not think of Thor just battling through.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
so
hold on,
perfect
guys.
for
We're
him.
going to get there.
We're going to get there.
Sorry,
We're going
sorry.
to get there.
That's next.
Yeah.
But it's a good preview.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a good preview for what comes next.
So, quick after credit scenes, we have the one scene with Vulture in jail.
Yeah, which again I think is a super important scene.
Super good, right?
Because Scorpion comes up to him, Matt Gargan, pre-Scorpion, I guess. But
Yeah.
the character who could be Scorpion,
Probably will be.
Yeah,
I would
who's
imagine
got
they're
his-
setting it up.
who's got his face all mangled from the boat
Yeah.
incident and all that, is like, hey, so I got some guys on the outside who would love to meet Spider-Man, and rumor is you know who he is. And Toombs just telling him, look, if I knew who he was, he'd already be dead.
Yeah.
But we know that he knows
Yeah.
who he is. And so it's kind of that dichotomy. And one of my kids was even asking, like, well, why did he lie? I'm like, well, I think it's because he really does respect Peter, because he is ultimately a good guy to a degree.
Right.
He did some bad things.
Right.
That's a teachable moment, kids.
Yep, there you
Sometimes
go.
good people get caught up in bad places.
Yep.
But I don't think he wants anybody to hurt Peter.
Yeah.
Because I think he knows Peter was trying to do a good thing.
Yeah.
Or he wants to kill him himself.
That could be too.
Not sure which.
Either way. Either way.
Yeah. But I like to think it's the former.
Hey, so thinking about Scorpion, we have to have a J. Jonah Jameson to actually get the Scorpion, don't we?
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up earlier. That's one of those things that, I don't think it's missing from this movie. I think this movie's perfect how it is. It doesn't have to give us everything. That's the great thing that they did here.
Yeah.
Is they didn't feel like they had to give us every aspect of every Spider-Man movie ever, because that's what bogs them down.
Right.
And so they left some stuff to come in the future. But
I'm excited for J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, I'm excited
I
for
wish
some
we
more
had-
Now, specifically, I'm excited if it's still J.K. Simmons.
Yeah,
he's like the perfect J.
I'll be mad. I'll be mad if it's anybody else.
Yeah.
Hashtag not my J. Jonah.
I think that's one of those jumps that audiences would accept happily.
Yep.
I don't think anyone would walk in and going, "Isn't that the same guy from the other movies?"
I think everybody would just rejoice.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
the same guy from the other movies.
Exactly.
Spider-Man is a menace. Yeah.
It's not slander. Slander's spoken.
Yeah.
In written form, it's libel. This movie gets 4 J. Jonahs.
Oh, I like it.
This movie gets 4 J.K. Simmons.
4 J.K. Simmons. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
4 smoking cigars.
4 smoking cigars.
And then our after credits was
What was it?
what was the?
The after credits is
That's when he gets the suit back, or was that before the?
yeah.
Aunt May walks in.
No,
that was the end of the movie, right?
Yeah, the end of the
Aunt
movie.
May
Okay, I
walks
guess
in.
I was thinking him
Aunt May
walking.
walks in on him.
I was thinking him walking down the stairs was the end of the movie.
No, at the end of the movie was him getting back.
Okay.
Because it cuts. Blitzkrieg Box cuts off the what?
Oh, that's
Yeah,
right.
what
That's
the
right. That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So we skipped over a really important part there
Because
because
Aunt
now,
May's gonna know that
now
he's
Aunt
Spider-Man.
May knows he's Spider-Man,
Which is new. That
Yeah.
is very new for Spider-Man.
yeah. Well, I mean that's happened before.
Yeah, well, okay,
There's
so Aunt
precedence for
May's,
it.
Aunt May's always been that character that knew but didn't acknowledge that she knew, right? Or like
Yeah.
that Peter didn't know.
I think
that she knew.
the first time
She doesn't know that she knows. That,
I think the first time they acknowledged her knowing, and it's comic books, so I think they've done it and then undone it and then redone it
Yeah.
and then undone it, that
Right.
sort of thing. I'm not positive because I haven't been reading since any of that happened. But my understanding is there was at one point a reveal that she found out, and then you found out that she really always did know.
right.
And they kind of play at that, I think, in some of the old Raimi movies, too, because there's a couple of times where
Definitely.
she's giving him speeches in there where she's like, that Spider-Man sure is great. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, now cat's out of the bag, which is also one of those things we didn't really talk about here. I don't know what's going on with Spider-Sense in this universe. Because sometimes he seems like he's got it a little bit, and sometimes he doesn't seem like he's got it at all.
Oh, Spider-Sense.
Yeah.
Okay. You brought that up last time we talked about this, and I
think it
didn't
was
catch
during
that.
Civil War.
I didn't catch that before. I was kind of looking for it this time, and I really couldn't make out if he had it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see if that ever comes up as a thing or whatever. But Did we ever figure out the last?
Post-credit scene is Captain America coming
Oh,
on
yes.
and doing like his little thing.
Sometimes patience.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
How many more of these?
Sometimes you wait for something and it's disappointing.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Good stuff. All right, Spider-Man: Homecoming, thumbs up for me for sure.
Yep.
I enjoyed it. I'm very much looking forward to more with this Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'm bummed out they didn't go with my naming convention. I wanted the next movie to be Spider-Man Winter Formal.
Nice, Far From Home,
Yep.
right?
So apparently they're sticking with the home thing. So
Yeah.
Far From Home, and then we'll get Home is Where the Heart is. You know,
I hope so.
home is where you make it.
Oh, goodness.
I'm the way, man.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, hey, there you go. There is our look back at Spider-Man: Homecoming. If you enjoyed the show, hey, we've been doing this for all the MCU movies, and if you haven't been listening, you need to go check it out. Go check it out. You can find us on YouTube. Just do a search for Geek Easy Podcast and hit that subscribe button. Or you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Podbean, and Spotify. We are now on all of those podcasting platforms. But also you should be able to find us on pretty much any of your podcasting apps.
So anybody who's been complaining about us not being on Spotify,
I think it's just you.
no, not me. There's a very specific someone who isn't listening to this.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I'm bothering to.
Maybe now that we're on Spotify, he will.
Yeah.
No,
Anyway.
definitely still won't.
Anyway, thanks, guys.
That's right.
And until next time,
Thwip.
Marvel Goodyear.
I webbed up the camera.
You left up the camera.
The Geek Easy Podcast is a production of PixelDan.com. Musical tracks used in the intro and outro are used with full permission of the respective owners or creators. Intro and outro narrations are provided by me, Brian T. Stevenson. PixelDan.com's The Geek Easy Podcast is provided for entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those solely of the hosts or guests and do not necessarily represent those of PixelDan.com or any other party. Be sure to join us next time for another installment of the Geek Easy Podcast.